Hi, and welcome to episode 1. Today, our episode is going to be on basic vehicle maintenance. We're just going to do a light look under the hood, and I'm going to go over the more common areas where you'll be required to do maintenance on your vehicle. And we'll start out with a look under the hood, a brief look at everything, the 30,000 foot view, so they call it, although it won't quite be 30,000 feet. Dad joke. But we'll start out with the 30,000 foot view, and then I'll grab the cell phone and we'll get in detail and we'll go into each area specifically. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail today. Today's going to be a light overview, just a very light overview of some of the more common, simpler things that you'll deal with on a regular basis. The one thing I will go into a little bit of detail today on, because it's fairly regular, is adding oil. So we'll show you what oil to add, where to add it, how, a couple dad tips on there for you. And so that'll be today's episode. All right, so now in this area of the hood, we have the air filter right here. We have the fuse box right here. We have the battery right here. And we have what's called the master cylinder. This is where you add brake fluid. This is for the brakes. And so that's what this is right here. The master cylinder, the brake where you add brake fluid, is almost always on the front driver's side of the vehicle. Almost always here. The fuse box could be anywhere. The battery could be anywhere, this side, the other side. But the brake fluid is almost always going to be right here. Now, pretty rare that you have to add brake fluid. One thing you will see on older vehicles that you won't see in newer vehicles, right here, is a dipstick. A dipstick is not just a dummy. A dipstick is for checking fluids. And older vehicles will have a dipstick here for checking the fluid in your transmission, in your automatic transmission. They don't have them in newer vehicles. And the only reason is to make it more difficult, so you bring it in for them to look at. Some of the vehicles, it's very difficult to check your brake fluid these days. Some of them you can crawl underneath and they have a dipstick down there. Others, literally, it's a bizarre process. And it's too bad because it's such a simple process to check your transmission fluid. If you have an older vehicle that does have a dipstick for checking the transmission fluid, you check it with the engine running and the engine warm. And so you pull out the dipstick, clean it off, put it back in again. You'll see what I'm talking about when I go over the oil, adding the oil. Put it back in again, pull it back out, and then you check the level. And you also add fluid in here. You'll need a funnel, and you'll add the transmission fluid. Very important to get the right transmission fluid. Your owner's manual will tell you which transmission fluid to use. Okay. Sometimes when you're under the hood, you'll find little things accumulate from the road. So you just got to clean any junk out of there that accumulates. There's a lovely branch. My daughter's vehicle, she had it parked for a while, and the squirrel had actually started collecting acorns all around the engine, and she had to clean all these acorns from out around the engine. Now, under the hood here, there's a lot of stuff under the hood. And this big thing here is the engine. And as you can tell, this engine is a V6. And you can pull this thing off of here. And underneath will be the engine. This is not really the engine. This is just a cover to make it look pretty. Let's pull it off and have a look. And now you see why they put a cover on. That's not as pretty. All right, so there's your engine. Let's just get this cover back on. So let's start with adding radiator fluid, coolant for your engine. Coolant cools the engine down and keeps it from overheating. And here we are in the front of the vehicle because your radiator, which is the device that takes the hot water from the engine, cools it and sends it back to the engine, is going to be in the front of the engine here. And the cap is going to also be the front end of the engine. So here we are. This is a radiator cap, and they'll almost all look just like this, usually with yellow and black, around with a couple tabs. Now, rarely nowadays will you need to open this cap. And if you do open this cap, never do it when the engine is hot, as it operates under pressure and it operates also very high temperature, so you will get burned. So never open this when the engine is hot. And just for reference, you'll see it in a minute, but here's the dipstick. And the dipstick can be anywhere, but we'll talk about that when we get to the oil section. Nowadays, adding fluid to your radiator, if your radiator's low, you want to check it and add. You follow this little hose along here, and it takes you to a tank. And this tank is where we add our fluid. And normally they will have markings on the tank, and the markings will generally be down here, somewhere hard to see because they make everything so hard nowadays. But there will be down there the markings to check, and it'll usually have a full hot and a full cold, which are self-explanatory. If you're checking it with a hot engine, it should be at the full cold hot level. If you're checking it with a cold engine, it should be at the full cold level. And you can kind of see at the bottom there, you can see some pink. That's the radiator fluid. The engine's cold right now, and it's probably pretty close to the proper level. And this will be where you'll add radiator fluid. You pop this cap off, and you put you add your fluid in there. Be careful not to overfill it, but if you do, not the end of the world. Generally, they are made that it will overflow and just spill out. So, but you don't want to be wasteful. You don't want to contaminate. So that's where you add your fluid, your coolant. And most vehicles in most areas will run a mixture of half water and half antifreeze. This gives you good protection from cooling, but it also, antifreeze obviously helps so that the coolant doesn't freeze in the wintertime. You don't want it freezing. It'll bust up your engine, and that's an expensive repair. It'll bust up your radiator, so you don't want that happening. So you usually run about a 50-50 mix. There could be a 60-40. Your owner's manual will generally tell you what the manufacturer recommends. And you want to make sure you get the proper coolant. Most stores like Canadian Tire, any automotive store, will have all kinds of radiator coolant and antifreeze, and it'll say for GM, for Ford, for import vehicles, for all vehicles. So you'll be able to find the right stuff. And if you don't know, just ask the person working there and they'll help you. So you want to make sure you get the right stuff. Most of them will be a 50-50 mix. And antifreeze not only helps to stop things from freezing, but generally it also helps reduce corrosion. So it's not a bad idea every 3-4 years to flush out your system and get new antifreeze in there. So there's the radiator antifreeze coolant system. Let me give you a dad tip on the radiator here. Let's suppose you are lost in the middle of nowhere. Not lost. You're driving down the highway. You're in the middle of nowhere, and the engine conks out. It's overheating, and you figure it's short on antifreeze. Maybe some of the antifreeze leaked out, or it was low, and so now you can't run your engine without it overheating. So what do? Well, in an emergency, you can throw any liquid into here. You can throw, no, not any liquid, but you can throw, if there's a swamp nearby or a slough or a lake or a ditch, you can throw any kind of water in here in an emergency. You could, even if you have to relieve yourself, you could even, anything. In an emergency, you want to get some coolant into that engine. So you can pretty well put anything in here in an emergency, any kind of water. But if you do get into that situation, as soon as you get back to civilization, get it flushed out and get some proper stuff in there. You don't want it wrecking anything. That's just an emergency procedure. So there's a dad tip for you on the antifreeze. Now this here is the air filter container, air filter housing, and they all look different. They're all different shape, but generally how you can tell is because here's the main engine here, and this is attached to a tube, which normally you're going to see they're about 4 inches in diameter. This is actually a pretty big tube here. And you follow it along, and it ends up somewhere going into the engine compartment. So that's how you can generally tell that this is your air filter housing. And the air filter housing will normally have 2 or 3 or 4 clips on it. And you just pop those clips open with your hand. And then you can pull this top off. Normally it's going to be a pain in the butt. Be careful, you don't want to cut yourself. You get a little screwdriver. You can get little prying screwdrivers that help you pop it off. You want to be careful, don't break anything. Get the air filter out of there and replace it with the new one. Now, air filters, each manufacturer will, in the manual, will tell you how often they recommend to replace it. Here's a dad tip for you. If you have access to compressed air, often you can just blow it out with compressed air and get some more miles out of it. So let's say they recommend you change it every 12,000 kilometers, for example. After 12,000 kilometers, you could probably blow it out with compressed air. In fact, you could blow it out every 6,000 for that matter. Blow it out, and you could probably get another 6,000 kilometers out of it, maybe even another 12,000, depending on the conditions, how dusty the conditions are. Generally, you want a good air filter. It does help a little bit with mileage and helps the engine run better. So there's a dad tip for you on changing the air filter. So this here is the battery, and the battery can be on either side of the vehicle. It's on this vehicle, it's on the driver's side, but it's often on the driver's side or over on the passenger side. It varies from vehicle to vehicle. And here we see red. Red is always associated with positive, and black is always associated with negative. If you have to replace a battery, it's very easy. We won't go into that today, but it's very simple to pop the old battery out and put the new one in. Also, the positive has a plus sign. A negative, you can't see it here, but it has a little negative symbol there, a minus symbol. And the negative post on the battery is always smaller than the positive post. The positive post is always bigger. So there's a few different ways you can make sure if you're replacing your battery that you get it done right. And you can tell when your battery needs replacing. The most common signs are the engine doesn't want to start, and you turn the key and you hear or you hear that's generally a sign of a dead battery. So those are a couple of things about the battery, just some basics. Try and keep it clean. You will notice some stuff builds up around the posts at times, some buildup, and you can spray a little WD-40 and get a wire brush and just wire brush it off, and that keeps it healthy. Most batteries nowadays are what they call non-serviceable, where you just put them in and you let them go, and you don't add water. You used to add water. It's a long story. We won't get into that nowadays. But anyways, so there's what's called maintenance free. Here's a dad tip for you, some dadly advice for you. When you buy a battery, you get a warranty. Take the warranty card or the warranty paper, put it in plastic like a lunch bag or something, and slip it underneath the battery when you put the new battery in, so that when you have to go and your battery dies early on you, you know where your receipt is, you know where it is, and it's right with the battery at all times. So there's a little bit of dadly advice for you. Okay, let's swing up now to the fuse box. So here's the fuse box, and they'll look something like this. Could be on either side, could be in a few different places. It'll normally say something like relay and fuse on it, and your owner's manual will also tell you where it is. And then you can just, each one will have a different little kind of a clip on it for popping off the top. You pop off the top, and there's all the fuses, all different kinds of fuses and some relays up here. And what these generally do is there's a lot of electrical going around your vehicle, and sometimes electrical malfunctions. And so rather than burning up a bunch of wires, these fuses are made to burn. So that if you have a problem, you pop it out, put a new one in, and away you go. If you get a fuse that keeps burning on you, that tells you there's something more wrong. It does happen from time to time in normal operation that you get a momentary surge of electricity for various reasons, and you blow a fuse. No problem. You just replace another fuse, and away you go. But if you see a fuse that keeps on going, keeps on burning, you know there's something wrong, and you got to get some repair. And every fuse box under the hood will have a little diagram that tells you what each fuse is for. Some are better than others. This one ain't so good. It doesn't tell you a lot of information. Normally your owner's manual will give you more information. So for example, let's say your wipers stop working. They just won't work. Whenever something electrical fails, the first place to check is to see if the fuse is burnt. And so you grab your manual or you grab this, get under the hood, and you find the one that says wiper. And this one ain't going to help you very much. It may say wiper. I'm not going to look at them all and see. But let's say what you're looking for isn't here, isn't clearly delineated. Check out your owner's manual, and the owner's manual will generally tell you which fuse is for your wipers. I think that's enough for this episode. So let's just leave it there, and we'll cover the rest in the next episode. All right? Remember, Dad loves you, and listen to your mother.